Betsy in recording who all is here in the meeting today. And we'll go ahead and get started in a couple minutes.
I can't get this. God.
Okay, it looks like our waiting room is starting to even out. So I would like to welcome everyone today to our webinar on SACOST and Understanding the American Rescue Plan Dollars. This webinar is presented by PENN SACCA, the Pennsylvania School Age Alliance. And we would like to remind you that this event is being recorded for future viewing. My name is Josh Wagner. I'm a PENN SACCA co-chair, also the director of the Innovation and Creativity Lab at Gettysburg College. And also with us today, we have Jillian Miller. Jillian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Morning, everyone. I'm Jillian Miller, PENN SACCA co-chair, and also quality coach at ELRC Region 5 for Trying Together.
So as we get started, I'd just like to share a little bit about the Pennsylvania School Age Child Care Alliance. We are the National After School Alliance affiliate for the state of Pennsylvania, and our vision, as you can see here on the screen, is that out of school time is an important pillar in youth development in Pennsylvania, and our vision is to ensure that Pennsylvania's school age professionals are recognized, valued, respected, and appreciated. And we would like to invite all of you to become a member. You can do that at www.pennsacca.org. Membership is free, and we are able to give them to you all sorts of benefits like this webinar that's happening today. So please consider going and becoming a PENN SACCA member. All right, we're going to take this second right now to pause for you to do the following. First of all, attendance. If you could place your full name and your program name in the chat box, that way Betsy can start to record who all is here so that you guys can get credit for attending today's webinar. If you're sharing if you're sharing a computer with someone else, please include their name also in the chat box just so that we can get an accurate accounting of who all is here. Betsy will also be sharing the various documents and things that we'll be going through today in the chat box, so feel free to look there for those files to download, and that way you can kind of keep up with all the information that is being shared today. And then finally, if you are looking to receive Act 48 credits, you'll need to send an email to Betsy Satman. You can see her email just right there is on the screen with the following information: your full name, your PPID number, your zip code, and your email address. And that way Betsy can make sure that you get all of your Act 48 credits if needed.
I don't see a chat box.
I can hear you. Mute yourself.
So if you're looking for the chat box, if you look on the little screen with all of the icons, one of them will say chat box. If you click on that, it will open it up and you'll be able to see all of the information that we were just talking about.
Excuse me, what if you're attending via phone?
If you're attending via phone, then if you could just go ahead and send an email to Betsy Satman with the information, then we can get you registered and make sure that you get credit for being here at the webinar. Also, we can make sure that you get any of the files and things that were shared today.
Thank you so much.
Sure. At this time, does anyone else have any questions about that process?
Okay, Zuri, you're going to want to turn on your headphones, honey, or I mean.
Okay. So let's talk about our agenda for today's webinar. We have two segments, first with question and answer after each segment. The first, we'll talk about ways of being, So when you're in the webinar today, let's please support a safe place for all participants. Please, whenever possible, stay on mute. Also, please use your camera if you would like. If not, you can turn it off. That's totally fine as well. If you have any questions that come up during today's presentations, we will have a time for a Q&A session at the end of each section. So if you could please place your questions in the chat box, we'll be monitoring those and then we can bring them up at the appropriate times. And also, again, please feel free to join the conversation and concepts by sharing stories about yourselves or your expertise in the chat box. And then the objective for today is to support reciprocal communication among coworkers and administration in sharing new program ideas, new professional development offerings, and other resources that may be available for continuous quality improvement of individuals and program practices and policies. All right, so first up, we have Stephen Williams. He's PENN SACCA board member and the new Associate Director of Poseidon. He will be sharing kind of a basic overview about the American Rescue Plan dollars. And Stephen, we're gonna throw it over to you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here and for participating in this. So I'm gonna go over the American Rescue Plan, how it pertains to Pennsylvania and the after-school community, and what is happening in the immediate and short-term, long-term future. So as you may or may not be aware, the American Rescue Plan was signed into law on March 11th of this year. And for Pennsylvania, what that meant was that we received just shy of $5 billion for K-12 education. Of that 4.99 billion that we were appropriated, 4.5 of it was distributed to school districts, mainly along Title I, Part A, which is largely based on poverty metrics, and that was to bolster learning, provide supports for school districts, and 20% of that money that was sent to those school districts is used for mitigating learning loss or learning recovery. How that manifests itself for OST and the out-of-school time community is that an allowable expense of that 20% is for after-school programming and partnerships with community-based organizations. Then with respect to that initial 4.99 billion, there was another piece that was sent directly to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. It was a much smaller sum of money, but it was $499 million, just shy of $500 million that was distributed to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And that money is allowable for OST directly. However, a plan has yet to be constructed. So 10% of it was 10% of that 499 was to be used for after school programming, and another 10% was to be used for summer enrichment. So just shy of $100 million for OST in general. And that money is to be utilized within a year. So a plan has to be put in place, and then it has about a year to be utilized. So we can go to the next slide there. So how are those funds allocated? So, touching on what I just said, there are essentially two access points for these ARP dollars. There's the much larger sum of funds, which went to the school districts. However, that is far more decentralized, and depending on your relationship with your school district, might be a little more difficult to tap into. However, it is a larger pool of funds. So for example, Philadelphia got hundreds of millions of dollars, a large sum of funds, and 20% of hundreds of millions is quite a big chunk of change. So, but depending on your relationship with Philadelphia, for example, that might be a little more difficult to access and arduous of a task. The other piece, the other access point, is through the Pennsylvania Department of Education directly. However, they have yet to construct a program for accessing these dollars. That is where Poseidon has stepped up. And in conjunction with the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA, we've been working on a grant program based on a similar program out of Vermont called the Vermont After School Grant Program. Ours is now called the Out of School Time Grant Program. So it's going to be beyond just after school. It's going to be, because theirs focused only on summer enrichment, ours is going to be on after school for the entire year. But that is a plan that we've been working on that we are going to submit to the Department of Education for them to review, and then hopefully.
Fine now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So we can. I guess I've gotten a little bit ahead of myself here, but that is sort of where we are at with respect to our advocacy efforts. So, per the law, the previous screen. Oh, yeah. The previous screen said 10%. Now this one says 20%. So it's. I can go back. I can explain that. It is 10% of the 10% of the allocation is for after school programs, and 10% of the PDE allocation is for summer enrichment. So, and that amounts to about 50 million per. But when you total it up, it's really 20% of that allocation is for summer or OST in general. So that's how those numbers are arrived at. Does that help? Okay, I'll keep going. Yeah, okay. So with respect to Poseidon's advocacy efforts, the Pennsylvania Department of Education reached out to us shortly after the ARP was signed into law, seeking insight on what would be the most effective model for getting these funds out into the state and into the OST community. And so we tried to work on a plan that allowed for these funds to go to the most underserved and unserved parts of the state and areas that needed greater access to OST programs. And I think the plan that we have does that. It's based on the Vermont model, which aimed to do that. And PDE just has to review and then accept and then submit to the feds that plan. We have a meeting coming up with the Department of Education along with folks in the legislature. That is on May 25th. We will be discussing, why we think this effort will be effective and whether or not they should support it. We do have advocates within the legislature who have already started to champion this thing. We just need PDE to essentially sign off on it and move the ball along. Is there any questions so far? No? Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So mostly what I was just referring to was the Pennsylvania Department set aside. It's a smaller sum of funds. However, it's a little bit more fluid because we are still in the process of constructing what that model looks like. We have a model drafted. However, PDE has yet to accept it. And so what that ends up ultimately looking like is still a little bit more in fluctuation right now. The bigger set aside of funds, which I referenced at the beginning of this, is what went to individual school districts. And the way you tap into those funds is going to be dependent upon your relationships with your school districts, and it's going to be largely unique based upon your communities. However, I got a little bit of insight from the After School Alliance in ways that you can go about that advocacy effort. So, you can think about what you offer. So when you're engaging your school districts, think about what it is your program or organization really brings to the table that can fill a need that the school district may not be able to. This is a large pool of funds that school districts are having trouble figuring out what to do with. I'm on the school board here in Harrisburg, and one of the regular conversations I have with our superintendent is just, what are you guys planning? And they still are figuring that out. Now they're seeking to get buy-in from their community through a series of listening sessions, which might be a suggestion, that you make to your local education leaders so that you can have a greater source of insight provided from the community to your school district. Teachers, are burnt out to a certain level, and school districts are trying to figure out what can they do to implement these dollars in a way that supports not just their teachers and not just the students within the school, but the community at large. So that's where you can step in and say, here's what we can do and here's how we can do it. And then also key to the American Rescue Plan, and this is really critical, is that they are focusing heavily on sustainability and accountability. I'm sure a lot of you may have been around for the 2008 financial crisis, and what school districts and the Department of Education and the feds are trying to limit is the creation of significant fiscal cliffs with these dollars. So whatever plan that you bring forth and are advocating for has to have a sustainability component to it, because once these dollars are gone, they don't want to, what they're trying to keep from happening is the loss of programming for those folks that were being served. So those are just some things that need to be thought about. And then also there's the accountability piece, because this is a large sum of money, and the feds and the Department of Education are going to want to track and know that this money was spent appropriately. Also on this PowerPoint and this was provided by the After School Alliance, is a template letter and talking points. So once you've established those meetings with your local education leaders, some of the talking points that the After School Alliance has provided can be used to help further your effort. And then also that template letter can be sent out, obviously customized for your community and for your school district, but those are tools that can be used to help get you an audience with those folks that make decisions based on or in your community as it pertains to education. Then I think we can go to the final slide. Are there any questions? So I don't want to feel like I'm rushing through this, but no. Okay. And then also this last slide are just a few more After School Alliance tools that they've provided that I wanted to list for you here. The last link here is the After School Alliance website on the ARP. And this shows just some of the tools that I've already listed here, but also what other states are planning. The program that I referenced earlier with regards to PDE and that granting program, that is just one idea. Some states are doing something different. There are different riffs on, that grant process. Again, we based ours on Vermont, but all of it was born out of the idea that we don't want to do what New York State did, which was take its set aside at the department level and continue to pour that into Title I schools. And I say that with the caveat that we all know Title I schools and students that attend Title I schools need as much resources as possible. However, the majority of those funds, as I pointed out earlier, from the American Rescue Plan went to Title I schools. This set aside, specifically at the state level, is an opportunity to really show support for the out of school time community. And that's what we are trying to make sure happens. So I am confident at this point in time that PDE is going to, if it's not directly the program that we've come up with, they are going to put that money into the OST community and not just dump it into Title I schools. I've received word from folks within the legislature and the department that that's what they're thinking and leaning towards. However, the concern that what New York did, because that was the path of least resistance, is still what is motivating us to be proactive with our advocacy efforts, and also should be what motivates you fine folks with your advocacy efforts, especially at the local level, because I bring up Philadelphia for a reason. The Philadelphia School District, received a bunch of money, and the word is that they are considering trying to close deficits with those dollars, as opposed to being more intentional and creative with that money, especially as it pertains to the OST community. So there is a sense of urgency with respect to your advocacy efforts and ours, but I just want to bring all that up to just kind of hit at why there is that sense of urgency. So I think that about wraps up my presentation. I hope that was clear, and I'm sorry if I sped through things. I will answer as many questions as possible and as best I can.
Does anyone have any questions for Stephen? Diana Hendrick is asking, where do we find the tools? Diane, I put the link to the website just above your question there. If you click on that link right now in the chat, it will open up the website for you. And as you scroll down through the page, you will see all the tools there in about mid website page.
I did also receive word from the App School Alliance yesterday.
I'm sorry, did you have a question? Okay.
I was just going to say that I received word from the App School Alliance yesterday based on our national call. The June 7th deadline is not a hard deadline. It's more like an encouraged deadline. If the states haven't been able to come up with a plan properly prior to June 7th, they can ask for an extension. The details around that extension are a little bit unclear and would probably require some follow-ups with the After School Alliance folks. But if, because we are on May 21st, if we are not able to get the Pennsylvania Department of Education to submit its plan prior to June 7th, there is the allowable extension. So I just want to make that clear to everyone too.
So Stephen, it's Betsy. So we're talking about that 10% of money that has that June 7th deadline, but it's my understanding from what your presentation has stated that the others that do not have the same deadline. And do you have that absolute deadline on that? I know a lot of dates and times have been flying around, but I say that because I want people that are on this webinar to know that there is time for them to get a plan together and have those conversations with the district. Because I mean, June 7th is right around the corner. So it's like, how am I going to do this? And so do you have that particular deadline on when the schools have to submit their plan as to what they're going to do with the funds that they're receiving?
So yes, let me be clear. The June 7th deadline is just for the Pennsylvania Department of Education. That deadline is not applicable to the plans that school districts are to implement. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not quite sure what the deadline is for those school district plans. I just know that that money has to be obligated within, I think, a year. But I can get clarity, exact clarity on that, and provide that to Betsy or Jillian or whomever is the best point person for distributing all of that information. But I think that's also something important to be understood, that for the school districts, the money doesn't have to be spent immediately. It just has to be obligated within a certain time frame too. So that June 7th deadline is not applicable to the school districts. However, there is an obligation deadline that I think is within a year. But I can, make sure that we get exact answers distributed to folks, maybe via Betsy, if that's cool with you. Yes, okay.
Do we have any other questions before we move on to the next section? Remember, you can always put them in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey everyone, it's Jack Saver from Brightside. Thank you so much for doing this. Quick question. I don't know if it was addressed before. I have to step off the call for a few minutes. We're having a hard time contacting individuals that know how to tap into these funding. I mean, especially, I think we tried in Pittsburgh already, and we keep going around in circles. Is there like a contact list that can be sent out for exactly who to contact within each region?
So are you talking about school districts or folks at the department?
So we've tried at the school district, because based on what we've learned from the website, it said you have to contact your school district. And we contacted the school district. They couldn't really pinpoint us on who that direct contact would be.
So at the school district, it's probably going to be your superintendent, your board president, your business manager. Those are the folks that are going to be having a big role in how the funds get distributed. Now, they might be struggling to figure out how to use those funds, but that I think then puts a little bit of the onus on you to help them come up with a plan. And that might even be a two-parter, and the first part being they ask for buy-in from the community, such as what Harrisburg is doing with its listening sessions. So Maybe that helps steer your direction a little bit.
Okay, thank you. We'll try that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be those folks within the LEA or local or school district, sorry.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions. If anything does come up, please remember you can put it in the chat box and we can go back to it later. Next up, I'd like to introduce Casey Conley, who is a PENN SACCA board member, also an active OST and SAC advocate. She's been doing this work for quite a long time and has a great amount of experience that we would like to tap into today, talking about community collaborations and parent engagement. Casey, why don't you take it ahead?
Good morning, and I'll take that next slide. Great to be with you this morning and talking about really a tremendous opportunity for the OST community. This is the largest infusion of money since 2000, when the 21st Century program started, 21st Century Learning Center programs on a federal level. So it's an opportunity to really be a game changer for us. And so in terms of looking at how we can make sure that this is in front of everyone, we need to look at how we can promote this and collaborate and look at our community. So I always start out with thinking that we need to educate everyone around us and start at the center. One of the areas that really needs to be communicated with is our staff. So they're aware of this and aware of these opportunities. Josh has pointed out, many resources that are available to you through the American Rescue Act portion of the After School Alliance's website. And I'll point out a couple of others, but this is really key that everyone knows that. So think about in your staff meeting, letting folks know about it, know what's going and why you're looking to make a connection to your school districts about this, and potentially, if you go after state money, to PDE. You also want to be, of course, looking at the most important components in doing any advocacy work in your direct purview, or your parents. They are the voters that our legislators are looking to respond to. But most importantly, in this action, we're looking at our school boards. And in making the point, it's going to be your parents that need to be fully informed. The worksheets and I put in the chat box will be a specific summer learning, Pennsylvania specific, about what differences money can make and what is the state of activities here in the state of Pennsylvania, and the tremendous need for many parents. And what your parents really have the opportunity to do is to tell their story. Those are the important stories that our school boards need to hear, our legislators need to hear, to know what a difference and what these parents have gone through during COVID and what they need to have to make a difference. These monies are coming in, and it really is to help their children. It's to help them really see that the best outcomes can come after a very difficult time. We also look at seeing our program partners. Those are our ELRCs, and Rhea is going to speak more about reaching out to the ELRCs to go to your school district, but I'll also speak to other programs that we look with. We're in different entities that we can really reach out to. United Way is another support that we can find out how other partners, how other after-school programs are coming together, and look to come into partnerships with them, helping broker that. Another piece I think we sometimes forget about is that as an after-school program, we really have the opportunity to reach out into the community in terms of employers being aware of these issues. The after-school community provides an amazing service to employers. If we were not operating, if we were not having these summer programs, if we were not having after school being available, we see what occurred during the last several months in our trying to deal with COVID, and how after school programs did come to aid many. But one of the issues is that we know that employers want to see their parents being able to focus on what they're doing at their job. And so by having our parents communicating with them and with us communicating with them about how this funding can make a difference, we have other advocates to go with us to our school boards and to our legislators to make a difference in what is being done. If you could go to the next slide. I think one of the things that we really need to look at is identifying the resources that are there. And of course, already was said by Stephen, the After School American Rescue Plan After School Alliance has a great website. There is also the link for 3to6.co rescue, which has some wonderful fact sheets. It also has testimonials, talking points that you can use. Those are things that you should be looking to really get out in your community collaborations, in your work in the community. Another opportunity is Summer Learning Day. If you haven't been participating in it, and you do have summer programs that are operating, July 6th through the 11th is going to be Summer Learning Week. So you decide what day is best for you on this. But what I think is a great resource that you can use is the Family Toolkit, which is available through summerlearning.org. This opportunity really gives you the same things that we saw on the specific American Rescue Plan website, but it also gives it around specific issues of summer learning and the summer opportunities that After School provides. I think that one of the things that we sometimes think it's going to be difficult to come up with a letter, or it's going to be hard to be able to give my points. These toolkits make it really easy. They also give you ideas of how to, who to invite, what the invitations could be, so that they can see the awesome work that you're doing every day in your programs, and how through your work that you're making a difference for young people. And if anything, this year, what a focus is on how summer learning and summer opportunities can really make for our young people. They've had such a difficult time over the last 13, 14 months in their schools. They've had to have, in many districts, there's looking at how can they do catch up, what can they do. This is an opportunity to really make the case of how you are operating and really supporting young people having these opportunities, not only providing a safe, enriching, and exciting place for them to be, but also having them have social opportunities that maybe they've been missing over the period of time that they've been doing virtual learning. So this is really almost the perfect point to make this case. So use it well. Going in, as it's been said, these funds are over a 3-year period. There is not specific dates yet in terms of when they have to be obligated. I would also suggest that you look at participating in the After School Alliance's After School for All, and looking at that day every year, Lights On After School, which will be again in November. So when those dates are coming out and those toolkits are, certainly use those activities to be able to make that difference for your programs. I want to just find out if there's any questions that anyone has about how you might go about doing this and the resources that I've pointed out, and the energy that at this point in time is really needing to be harnessed of your entire network of resources in your community. Well, if that's the case, that there are no questions, it's been so well described, I will turn it on to my next presenter and back to Josh to continue us on the presentations.
Okay, next up, we have Rhea Simmons, who is a quality coach at the ELRC, and she will be talking to us about school districts and connecting with school districts. So Rhea, why don't you take it away?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rhea Simmons, as you know, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that Kathleen already touched on. I wanted to just go not too deep, but a little bit deeper dive on how that could be accomplished and how your ELRC can help you. We know, and I don't know who's exactly in the room. I have a feeling there may be a combination of folks who are doing 21st century type programs, and then those who are doing true before and after school care. And one of the resources that has also been shared, I know Betsy shared it, was probably one of the first resources in the chat. So if you wanted to scroll back up to the top, this is going to be really important. And it's called Connecting School and After School, because because I think that's the key. If you have a relationship with your school district, that is absolutely great, because that's what you're going to need to build upon. I have a feeling, unlike large cities like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and even Harrisburg, where maybe you don't know exactly who to talk to. I know in our ELRC, where I am in 8, 9, and 10, the school districts tend to be a little bit smaller. So the folks that are going to be in control and making decisions about these funds are a little bit more accessible. And so you can maybe access them directly, or even indirectly through the administration or through the school personnel. The school board, the board of directors is going to be more accessible. And so kind of going back to the gentleman who was on the iPhone, he's like, well, I don't know who to talk to. Again, it's kind of, let's put yourself out there and talk to who, you can find who the school board of directors person or the members of the school board are, and start getting that information out to them. Hey, because they may not, even though it's very much on our radar, it very much may not be on theirs, at least not yet. So you could say, hey, I don't know if you know that this is coming, but I wanted to share this information about the American Rescue Plan. And I don't know if you know who we are. Hopefully you already do, because you've developed that relationship. But that group that's in the cafeteria after school, that's us. We're providing the care for the children, before the school day starts, after the school day ends. We were there during the hybrid thing when parents had to go to work and the children still needed to be in school. And we would like to be able to expand our services to more children. And again, the templates and all the information is certainly there. And so you'll want to make sure that you're spending time, if you making those relationships, making those connections. You may even know who the people in your school are that you need to talk to, whether it be the principal or the secretary or any of those folks. Sharing your newsletters, getting in there on the day, the day that the teachers come back and talking to parents. If that's talking to teachers, being there at kindergarten registration. If you've already been doing these things, these are the relationships you've built. And now it's time to kind of cash in on the fact that you've got that relationship and move it to this next level. When you start to think about what you're going to ask for, it could be a number of things. Maybe children can be sponsored to participate in your summer program or your before and after school program, or it can help you to create a sliding scale for your fees. I mean, these are some of the nuts and bolts kinds of things that when you are thinking about how to how this might be able to impact your program, we're getting a little nitty gritty. Now, I don't want to go super deep right now, but this is also a place where your quality coach may be able to help and to support you. I know that for those of you who are familiar with the STARS program, and by the way, that would certainly be something else that you want to share. If you are a STAR 3 or STAR 4 program, you want to make sure that your school district knows that you are already providing high quality care. So they don't have to go and start a new program and invent the wheel. You're already out there. And then you're asking them to partner with you in a variety of ways, whether it's sponsorships or resources or more space or whatever plan that you decide to design and present, then that would be how you would approach them. But your quality coach is, again, more than the person who's making sure that you've got your ERA scores. There are a lot of components to the standards that you have to meet, and one of the key components is around your community. So your quality coach can certainly support you in your efforts to outreach. And the nice thing about it is that they would be able to do that in a way that is tailored to your specific circumstances and your specific needs. So that's basically all that I wanted to talk about in this area. But if you had any specific questions about how a small location or a small program would be able to reach out to the community. Certainly you can ask me now, or you can certainly also reach out to your quality coach. And please, please, please make sure that the resources that were put in the chat box, that you follow up with those. I think that there's a template letter that could really help to get you started. And like I said, your quality coach could really be the person that you can reach out to help you think through how you could avail yourself of the school district and the resources that they would be able to use to so that you could partner with them.
Thank you so much, Ria. Do we have any questions for Ria? Remember, you can put them in the chat box or unmute yourself to ask your question. Okay, so if there are no questions,
sorry. So Ria had mentioned, it's Betsy, Ria had mentioned the Keystone Stars and making sure that your school districts know about the Keystone Stars program. And the other thing I just wanted to emphasize here is that our programs that are run and follow the standards of Keystone Stars are required to do alignment with the PA early learning standards. So I think that that's another voice that you can share with the district, that you have intentional everyday curriculums that align with the learning standards, because that's something that's what this is about, is really boosting that learning. The other piece too is around the social emotional learning piece, and how that's really become a big space and need that skill building there. And the PA early learning standards have an entire domain on social emotional learning skills. So some of the ask may be from your perspective to think about, can they help bring you into their social emotional learning curriculum that they're using within the district, and furnish the materials, because some of the curriculum materials are relatively expensive. And or are they able to provide you with the curriculums and the training and so forth? So that's another space to really think about, is the social emotional learning space that is happening with funding as well.
Hey, and Josh, I just wanted to riff on something that Ria mentioned earlier also, with respect to that relationship building with school board directors. You know, on the 18th, so this past Tuesday, we all had a primary election. And so that means a lot of school districts might have some turnover in board members. And these are folks who I think you should be talking to now and bringing to the forefront some of the concerns and issues and thoughts you have, especially as it pertains to the ARP and these additional dollars, because right now their attention is not bogged down in the minutia of running a school district. And so this is an opportunity to really sort of, for lack of a better word, indoctrinate them into the idea of how do you capitalize on these American Rescue Plan dollars. Because once they're on the board and the superintendent is discussing budget measures and all that stuff with them, you know, the attention grabbing aspect of what you are trying to advocate for will be far more difficult, because there will be other things competing for their attention. So right now, while you have a few months before these folks get on the board officially, I think it's a good time to talk with them too, because then you can bring them into what it is you are trying to advocate for. And then now you have created an advocate within the board on your behalf, because they're not going to forget about all these important things once those other things have become attention grabbing as well. So that's just something to consider and think about. And that person will be an ally for the long term.
Thank you, Stephen. I did want to piggyback on one more thing, that sometimes the school districts don't know that the people that are in the after school, out of school time arena are certified teachers. And so we don't tell that story enough to say, you know, that these are the qualifications of the staff that are working every day with these students. So that's another thing to bring to their attention as you have these conversations with your district, because they just don't know. And so we need to do a good job telling that story, that this is who our staff is, this is their qualifications, or, you know, whether they have the SAC credential or they have an associate's or a master's degree or a bachelor's degree and a teaching certificate, that gives the school district comfort to say, oh, you can teach, which we know we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think Betsy's point about not letting the thought that what's occurring in after school is babysitting, that education being able to be done, as Stephen said, with new board members and then with the board members that are there currently is key. And having parents say what a difference this makes, why they're involving their children in after school and how it's benefiting them. And it's not just a safe place, which is very important, but it's much, much more.
Yeah, those are all fantastic points. Thank you for sharing. Moving on, next we will be hearing from Jennifer Roberts, and she's going to share some of her experiences and strategies and stories of actually dealing with school districts. She's the Executive Director of Extended Day Services. And Jennifer, you're up.
Hi. In our case, we had one of our school district principals reach out to us just about maybe a week or so ago, 2 weeks maybe. And, of course, immediately we thought, oh gosh, maybe there's something wrong with summer camp. But he reached out to us. He said he needs to talk to us right away. And their district is looking for us to help to supply certified teachers for them in order to run their summer learning recovery. So it was a really nice, kind of a nice surprise for us. And one of the reasons, just like you were just touching on, one of the reasons that happened is that this particular school principal is extremely involved in who we choose for our after school program teachers. He wants to see everybody before they're hired. He takes a lot of interest in it, and he really wants these people to be people he wants with his kids. And it's really been nice for us. And we've built, we spent time building that relationship with him, and now they're coming to us knowing that we have certified teachers, knowing that we can do this job for them. They're experiencing a lot of teacher burnout in their own ranks. And so they just can't get their own teachers to do summer school for them. So we are partnering with them to supply these certified teachers. They'll be kind of teaching us, they're giving us their curriculum, they're doing an in-service. So we're really able to get really involved this year with them, which is really nice for our teachers, because a lot of our teachers, their ultimate goal is ultimately to get a school district position. So this is a way for them to get in front of these people. And if they do a great job, they might just end up with a permanent school district position for them. So what I did with that, after that, we were so surprised, and we of course agreed to do that for them and to supply the teaching staff. So I put together an email and sent it out to our other school districts, because this district had an interest, and we sent out a very simple email saying that we had been contacted by one of our school districts looking for help with certified teachers for the summer recovery program. Sent it out to them thinking, probably nobody will respond. I had 2 responses the next day. I sent it to the superintendents of all of our other districts, and 2 of them responded pretty much immediately saying, yeah, we're having the same problem. We're having trouble getting certified teachers. We would really be interested in partnering with you to supply those teachers. So of course, with 3 school districts now, we don't have enough certified teachers to supply everybody. So now we are actively recruiting, actively hiring, which we can do. It's easier for us. And I think this is one of the reasons they came to us to partner, is that it's difficult for a school district. It's a big, slow moving machine to go out to the world to hire certified teachers for a 4 to 5 week program. I mean, it's a lot of work for their HR people and to get in. For us, we can do it faster, and we can just provide those people to them, and they can pay us. We can pay the people, and it's just much easier for them. And it's still one big kind of happy summer recovery program. So so far we've had a lot of luck with that. If you can just get your foot in the door, even with one of your districts, if you're in more than one, as soon as you can send the good news to the other districts that another district is interested in doing that, they all kind of jump on the bandwagon. So that's kind of been our experience with it. And, it is difficult recruiting teachers at this point. It's difficult recruiting anybody at this point, just because it's a tight labor market, but, we just kind of keep incentivizing until we can get the teachers that we need. We actually are supplying about 20 certified teachers to these couple districts, and we haven't heard from all of the districts yet, so it may be going up.
Are there any questions for Jennifer or for any of our presenters today?
We're just very thorough, Josh.
Yes.
I guess so, yes. We've had,
Yeah.
something just popped up in the chat box.
I'd be interested to hearing in the chat box or whatever, what the biggest barrier that our participants on the webinar think will be theirs in terms of making contact or looking to access some money. What is the thing that is either scaring them the most or making them most uncomfortable? What would that be?
There is a question in the chat box. I think this is for Jennifer. Will they be using your sites, Jennifer, or the schools?
Well, our sites are inside the schools, but we will be providing the staff for the Department of Ed, for the school district. So they will actually be sort of taking over these staff. So we will, although they are our staff and we're working with them, those staff will not fall under the Department of Human Services for those 4 weeks. But we are in the school district and they'll just be in separate rooms. So we'll be doing our summer camp in some rooms, and then our staff will be going to their rooms to help teach with their summer program for that period of time.
So circling back to Casey and Stephen's question, what are the biggest challenges right now that you guys are coming up against, or what is your biggest struggle, do you think, with the American Rescue Plan dollars? Ria, do you have your hand raised?
You're muted.
Right. What I wanted to share is that some of my providers, to be quite honest, are concerned. They are worried that school districts will decide to go ahead and do their own thing and provide it for free and shut them out completely. And not only shut them out completely, but actually, because parents now can select this free program and kind of create a patchwork of care around their work schedules, that it might actually kind of work counter to their needs. I think that's one of the, or counter to their programs. It could be a real threat to the existence of their programs. And I think that's when I talk to my providers, I think that's one of the biggest concerns. I think, again, they get ahead of that by making sure that, it's critical to make those connections, to help people see and understand what it is that you are providing and how what you provide provides not only an enrichment and a positive experience for children, but it also fills that need for parents as well. We understand 21st century serve and Title I programs that are after school. We understand that they definitely serve an important need, but they don't run when school is closed. They have they run maybe 4 days a week, and then there's a 5th day that they're off. They don't operate during early dismissals or delays and things like that. And those are the kinds of things that really support parents. And the programs that we work with support children, but they also support parents. And so we want to make sure that that these funds don't, even though they were, to be a help, don't really turn out to be something that is a hindrance. And I think that that's something that I've heard from some programs.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on that, Ria, this is a great opportunity for programs to be reaching out to the schools and showing that value that you're adding, and also showing the sustainability factor of your programming that you're offering. Because I think that can be a big key issue, especially with these funds not being permanent funds. A school could come in, create a program, but then in a couple years from now, how will that program be sustained? Whereas our programs that are already operating can benefit from this funding, and the school can benefit from it and create a long-lasting, sustainable program for all of the students and parents in the community.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's what is most critical here is making sure that that sustainability argument is made loud and clear to school districts and whomever it is you are trying to contact and advocate to, because that is a major component of the American Rescue Plan. You know, I touched on this earlier. They don't want to create a fiscal cliff with this money. You know, similar to what sort of happened based on the 2008 financial crisis and the money that was used as stimulus dollars back then. So they're trying to not create that problem with this new money. So if you're making that sustainability argument, you might have a much louder voice than otherwise.
I think, as Ria said, parents can really make that case on to the school board about the need for a program that really meets the community and the family's need for sustained care over a day, that it has all those different components. I remember during that fiscal cliff that you were talking about before, Stephen, that was a major issue. And at that point, I had about 25 programs I was running, and the concern was that programs
I just switched my
after,
phone.
after all that free opportunities, that there wasn't that, and how were they going to be able to maximize? So part of that was looking at how one could utilize the after-school programs to wrap around programs that they were doing, or to really be intentional about integration from the beginning. Made a major difference in being able to see sustainable programs occurring.
So it looks like in the chat, we had Crystal Lopez ask how, say that she doesn't know how to help get her programs to be part of conversations with school districts. Does anyone want to give some strategies or things maybe that we haven't already spoken about of how someone who doesn't have that sort of relationship already, how do you even start to build that relationship with the school district?
So I can speak from not my Poseidon role, but I am a school board director in Harrisburg, so I can speak to it from that role. And I can tell you, like, a big thing is being able to demonstrate the impact and effect that you're having on the community and families that you're serving. I think that is at least from Harrisburg's perspective and the role that I play in the situation Harrisburg is in, which is unique, not to every school district because we are a financially distressed school district. So knowing that your program is at least cost neutral or serves a extremely needed role or helps a large number of the community, like families and young people, bringing forth that sort of information when you reach out to your school board director is of the utmost importance. Again, Harrisburg is financially distressed, so that financial component is major in Harrisburg, but it might not be in the school district you're from. But that impact, knowing your impact, that is going to be universal, no matter what school district you're engaging. And so that's going to be a major component with respect to engaging your school board director or the person that you're trying to contact. So I hope that helps. I know that can be a little bit vague, but just when you are engaging your school board director saying, hey, we're serving X number of kids, and this is what we can do with X number of dollars or whatever support you're looking for, and how that conversation how you anticipate that conversation going.
Thank you. So just to be mindful of our time, it is 11 o'clock, so we're going to start to wrap things up right now. I would just like a couple little reminders before we leave. You can join us again on May 26th at 6:30 to 8 p.m. And that will be a SAC provider health and safety, including water safety webinar training. So you guys with summer programs can get all of your water safety requirements out of the way at that training. Also, I'd like to once again thank all of our panelists and participants for this great conversation today around the American Rescue Plan and how to access those dollars. As we continue to move forward with this, very big issue of the field, I would just like to remind everyone that PENN SACCA is a great resource. We're here to help all of you guys with any more questions, concerns, resources, things that you guys need to make your programs run the best that they can. And so once again, I'll just plug kind of going over to pennsacca.org and becoming a member today, because then we can really boost the community and be able to share all of those resources and really share your guys' stories about how your programs are running to be able to do this advocacy work. Couple of loose ends. If you need Act 48 credits, this is your last call to send an email to Betsy Satman. You can see on the screen all the information that she needs, and she will get you your Act 48 credits. Also, certificates for this training will be available in the next couple of days through the PA Keys PD registry. If you haven't shared your full name in the chat box, please do that just so Betsy can record who all was here and participated in today's conversation. Does anyone else have anything to add before we adjourn this webinar? Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, and I hope that you have a great rest of your afternoon, and good luck with reaching out to your school districts.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.